Leaving a cult, what is it like, and the aftermath. Hey, it's Gary Coxe, business and life strategist. I was unfortunately in a cult for 45 years before I chose to leave, and man, was that a difficult thing. And that cult, most people want to know, it is Jehovah's Witnesses. Of course, some of you who are watching are Jehovah's Witnesses, and you're going to tell me I'm a liar, and I've made a couple of these videos, and the stuff that I get and the haters that are supposed to be the loving people of the world, whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to share with you, unfortunately, why when some people leave the cult, get kicked out, whatever, commit suicide. And let me tell you, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. And this, by far, leaving, by far, nothing come close to measuring the pain emotionally, mentally, financially that I've been through. Thank God I've recovered. I've had everything from my wife telling me my baby isn't mine. Of course, she was a Jehovah's Witness. My father being murdered. I mean, I can go on and on. That stuff is like a cakewalk compared to leaving. And let me share with you why. So there's a couple things that I encourage people to do when they leave the cult. This is the type of thing that I do in life on a day-to-day basis, showing people how to make change very quickly, rewire themselves. In fact, I did Dr. Phil show the doctors for 3 years, taking people who've been through some major trauma, who've been in therapy for 10 or 5 years, 20 years, whatever, and in one session, I get them to do what they have not been able to do in years and years of therapy. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I did for myself to get me to move on very quickly. So when you're in a cult, and by the way, here's one of my definitions of a cult: any organization that you cannot honorably leave. Any organization that you cannot honorably leave. You can't honorably leave a gang. You cannot honorably leave Scientology. You cannot honorably leave Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, the list can go on. So you find out what are the things that they hold on to that they have programmed you to believe all your life, and then many times you have to do opposite of that. Now, I don't think it's a smart thing to do drugs. If a cult or a religion tells you not to do drugs, I would not go out and go opposite and just do a bunch of drugs. In fact, unfortunately, a lot of people that have left the Jehovah's Witnesses, that cult, they would do everything opposite, good or bad, than they were told not to do. Anyway, so the first thing is they think churches, they're of Satan. They're all Christendom. So the reason they don't want you to have anything to do with churches is because they don't want you to be indoctrinated or learn anything about other churches. Now, for the Jehovah's Witnesses that's watching, they'll tell you, oh, we study other religions and blah, blah. They study a lot of religions, yes, but a lot of the stuff they share with you is BS. So how did I get over this? Well, the first thing I did when I left is, guess what I did? I went to a church. I went to churches. Why did I do that? Because I knew that I would not agree with everything they say. And how did I deal with going to other churches? Let me tell you, and this is, if you're in the cult, left the cult, you'll understand this. If you're not, then you won't understand this. It is like almost demonic for you to go to another church if you're a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, it's like, stay away, whatever. So going into a church after you leave will feel very, very uncomfortable for most people. So you have to figure out, how do you learn to create a new belief system that will enable you to do something like this and not be controlled by their negative BS. So here's what I did. I came up with a simple belief. I knew in advance, going to a church, I am not going to agree with a lot of stuff. In fact, if I'm not careful, I will help validate the ex-Jehovah's Witness BS. For example, if the church does something that Jehovah's Witnesses said that was bad, and you go into the church and they're doing it, and you go, oh my gosh, they were right. Nah, forget that stuff. So here's the belief I came up with. I'm not going to believe everything they say, nor did I believe everything the JW said. That's it. So now I can go into a church, I can go into any church, and it doesn't really bother me, because I'm going to look at stuff and say, I don't agree with that. Just as much I'll go into Jehovah's Witness stuff, and I don't agree with that BS. So that enabled me to go to other churches, because Jehovah's Witnesses, they're incredibly critical of other people because they believe they're the only way, and if you're not in their cult, then you have to be wrong. So then What happens now is you create an incredible critical mentality. It's mind-boggling. It's so critical that they can't take that out of their own cult. They're so critical of their own people. They're definitely going to be critical of people outside. So that's one of the first things I did. I went to other churches and understood that I'm not going to agree with a lot of their stuff. That's okay, because I certainly didn't agree with a lot of JW stuff. The other thing is people. Who you associate with. They do not want you closely associating with anybody other than their kind. And the reason being is if you go ahead and go outside of that loop, what's going to happen is they're afraid you're going to leave or you're going to be indoctrinated with other stuff. So when I left, I virtually had about maybe 3 people in my life that were not Jehovah's Witnesses. So when I left, I virtually had no friends and family that were in it. They just, just shunned me like crazy. And then, of course, all my so-called friends shunned me for life. They're programmed to treat you when you leave as if you were dead. So kind of extreme. So one of the next things that you have to do, and I had to do, is I had to learn to go out and find new friends. And I'm always doing that. I'm always looking for new friends, but I have a definition, my definition of what a friend is. And I make sure that whoever I bring in, if you will, or want to have as a close friend, they meet my criteria. That's very, very important to me. And you should have that criteria as well, whether you're in a cult or not in a cult, because if you don't have that criteria, what's going to happen is that means you don't have boundaries. And then people are going to step over your boundaries, and it's just going to bring you a whole bunch of unnecessary drama. So I remember one of the biggest disadvantages that I've had in business being in the cult is because I did not create relationships with people. And because of not creating relationships that were long-term, basically I would go in, like say, people would bring me in for a speaking engagement, because that's what I did a lot of, and I still do that, professional speaking. And I would go to a company, let's say they wanted to invite me, I remember one company inviting me to a black tie event, and it was also one of the decision makers' birthday parties. Can't do that. So because of that, I was unable to develop a very close relationship. So what happens is you can't grow your business very, very large. Not all the time, but in a lot of situations it's hard to, because you're not gonna break bread with a lot of these people. You're not gonna hang with them and go on retreats with them and masterminds and so forth. So that's something that I definitely do now. So all I'm saying is when you are programmed to believe a certain thing, it's very, very difficult when you leave to break that programming. So many times you have to do things that are very, very opposite of what you've been taught. And I did this right away. I immediately went, I didn't say go looking for friends, but I knew one of the next things that I needed to do is I had to create new friends in my life. And they come and go. Just like a season, they come and go. You know who the true ones that will stay with you no matter what. And no matter what goes on in your life. Another thing I wanted to mention too, darn it just slipped me. I forgot what it was. Oh well, I will assure you that I will have more videos and I'll remember it and bring it to your attention. Oh, what was it? Darn. Anyway, leave your comments below. Love to see your comments below. And watch out for, even in yourself, let me tell you why quickly, how people get programmed to believe really crazy, stupid stuff. And I tell people all the time, smart people believe stupid things. And this is how smart people like you or even myself can believe stupid things. See, if you find somebody that, let's say, has more money than you do, or like myself has been on TV or has books, if you're not careful in your mind, you will place a higher status on them than they deserve. And then if you're not careful, you will listen to everything they say. And to prove that, centuries ago, just about everybody on this planet used to believe that the earth was, what? Flat. Cult leader Jim Jones. You know how many people he took with him? 997 people, I think it was, something like that. Nearly 1,000 people that went to their death because they listened to everything they said. And the reason being is if you're not careful, you'll put a higher status on somebody. And that's what these cults do. So in the Jehovah's Witness, they have their Bethel, And it's called their governing body. And these people, it changes all the time. I think they have 11 now. These people, that's who you listen to. So in their mind, they've placed a massively higher status on that person because they've been told that God brings all the information down to these people. So in your mind, you have a higher status on them. So you listen to everything they say, and you can do the the cult thing with Jim Jones. And this is how cults begin. This is how people that are smart believe stupid things. And if you're not careful, and that's why I rarely ever call anybody Mr. or Doctor. Even my own doctor, I don't call him doctor, because it's my way of saying I am not going to put a higher status on you because you have a degree. It doesn't make you any smarter. In fact, for doctors, nothing against my doctor, I love him to death. I mean, the third highest cause of death is medical malpractice. Why? Because we place a higher status on somebody that we feel that they know more than we do, so we just happen to listen to everything they say. Not going to do that. Not going to happen. So watch out for that. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. Love to see more of you. Subscribe if you don't mind. I'd love to see your comments. And I know I'm going to get the haters, but I'm okay with that. I'm out of here. Between now and the next time we get to chat, you know what to do. And if you don't, you will now. It's the title of one of my books. Don't let others, including cults, rent space in your head. Have a blessed day, and we'll chat again soon.